if you're focused on building community, that you're actually focused on the people and not so much the numbers.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to A Better Lifestyle. My name is Richard. Today, we're going to talk about building an online community. And I have the pleasure to have Nicole Baldinu with me. And she's a very successful entrepreneur. And she's doing some interesting, some good stuff, some interesting stuff. So we're going to be talking to her about building an online community, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So please, Nicole, tell everybody who you are. Give us a brief resume of who you are, let's say maybe in 90 seconds, 2 minutes, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure thing. Well, hi, Richard. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast. So my name is Nicole Baldinu. I was a high school teacher before I turned to full-time entrepreneurship. I've been in business with my husband and co-founder for 10 years now, actually. So this year marks 10 years since I left teaching. And together we run a top business podcast, the $100 MBA Show podcast, and a webinar platform called WebinarNinja, which has close to about 20 teammates distributed around the world across 9 time zones. So that gets a little bit tricky at times.
Wow. So now you're doing business full time now, right?
Correct. I left teaching via a film school route. So I didn't last very long in filmmaking, but when I left teaching, I was really searching for my second act, as I've come to kind of refer to it. And so I went through to film school to try and just do something different, expose myself to a whole new world, because I wanted to leave teaching. And pretty soon after, it was probably within a year that Omar and I had teamed up, and he was building a business. He came to me with the idea of the $100 MBA. And I had learned recently some film editing techniques and filmmaking techniques. And so, he had this idea for this online community, business training. And he said, we could team up and you could lend your skills to what I'm looking to build. And it sounded really exciting. So that was our first venture together. I pretty much left, the video projects that I completed the video projects that I was working on and put that, aside, and decided to team up full time with Omar and build our businesses.
Mm. All right. So we're going to jump in right into the topic. I'm going to start pretty basic. What is a community?
Oh, a good question. What is a community? It's interesting that you ask it in that way, because I think about sometimes the community and an audience, in business having some sort of overlap. But really the community, as I've come to see that we've built around the $100 MBA and with WebinarNinja, is, a group of people that come together who are like-minded, have similar aspirations, similar goals, want support from people who are doing maybe similar things to what they're doing, or trying to achieve or have achieved what they're trying to achieve. And so they come together for either accountability, for feedback, for inspiration, and, a lot of times friendship as well. Like what ends up happening in these communities is that, friendships are formed as well.
So how do you build a strong community online?
I'd say there's a few ingredients to what makes a really strong community. And by no means, do I see myself as the expert. What I will share, I suppose, is some of the journey that we've been on from, starting the $100 MBA and building WebinarNinja as well, and how we've kind of built communities around those two businesses, products. And some of the lessons, I guess, that we've learned along the way, because originally with the $100 MBA, it was, a product. It was a series of videos, content to teach people the fundamentals of business. And, and Omar would teach these business lessons. And below each video, there'd be spaces to comment. And so people could comment under those videos. And that way people were chatting and getting feedback and discussing like the content. It wasn't such a formalized community around that. When we came to, the podcast came after, and so we, you gather an audience of listeners. I realized then the power of, actually as a business owner, how powerful it is to build that audience so that you can, create content for them, deliver value to them, and more people come along to consume more and more of that content. After the $100 MBA, with WebinarNinja, we realized, that there's always a need to have that community aspect, because people, have questions. They want to see what other people are doing. And so we realized, okay, there's a need for a community for WebinarNinja as well. But initially we have a community now that we launched this year. But initially we went via the Facebook group route, which again has a very different purpose, different engagement, a different interaction to it. So there's different ways that you can build out your community. And I think throughout these 10 years, what we've landed on now through the different types of communities we tried to build around the $100 MBA and around WebinarNinja, we've really landed on a format and a way that works, which is now outside of Facebook.
Okay. So the community you have in WebinarNinja and in the $100 MBA, those are two different communities, or it's the same, like, people maybe?
We don't have a formal way for the $100 MBA community to gather. For WebinarNinja, I'll speak to that, is a community that we've called Ninja Town, and we've launched it on its own platform, and members and users of the software gather, and there's different activities, events. We have a community manager. So we have an established community for WebinarNinja. The $100 MBA has listeners of the show, followers of the show, of the podcast, but not a formalized community per se.
Okay. And what mistakes do you see people do when they try to build an online community?
I think you have to be very clear, why people and how people are going to engage. So, I think one of the lessons, and, I think there's a lot of successful communities that exist on Facebook, for example. But, we found that when we had the experience of having a community on Facebook, there's a lot of room for distractions. And so if you want people to engage, participate, and be focused on, the content, the engagement, the interaction, it is really a good idea to have it very, separate and in a space that's not easily, filled with other distractions. And I could see that Facebook would be, could kind of lend itself to people being distracted by notifications. So, the intention when, a member signs into Ninja Town is that they're coming there to, be really focused on content that's around webinars. They might be asking for feedback. They might be attending, a coffee hour session that our community manager, Jenny, hosts. They might be participating in one of the monthly challenges. So it's very focused as to why they're there and what they expect to get out of their time that they spend there, versus being somewhere where, I'm hanging around Facebook, or I'm hanging around whatever platform, and I could be easily distracted and go and do something else.
Okay. So what are some of the struggles that you've encountered while building your online community?
I'd say it depends on the product around it. So I guess one of the struggles with, say a webinar platform, so WebinarNinja, is that sometimes customers need support, they need technical help. And, one of the struggles can be how do you distinguish and differentiate between when someone's asking questions that are very technical related or support related versus, maybe getting feedback on a webinar topic they're thinking of doing, or how to attract more registrants for their webinars. So, having a community manager really helps in that regard. So initially when Omar and I years ago had set up the first community through Facebook, it was really just us running it. And, we've, as, the co-founders, we're spinning a lot of plates, we're managing a lot of things. And so, the time that it probably needed to invest in it on a daily basis was a lot. And so one of the things that if you can, to have someone who is dedicated as a community manager who can, route those conversations that are maybe more support related to the support team, because we have a support team that can handle those questions and kind of manage those conversations and moderate those conversations, is really, really helpful. So definitely having someone whose dedicated role is to manage the community is super, super helpful.
People have a lot of followers. If they have maybe 5,000 followers, 100,000 followers, it doesn't really mean that they have a community if they have 100,000 followers. So how do you deal with that? Like with that aspect, what's the difference, and how could someone, like I said before, deal with that?
Yeah, that's a good distinction, because I think if you're looking at the metrics of those, what people refer to as vanity metrics, followers, you're right. It doesn't always translate to engaged people that are really connected with your content, that are getting a lot of value, are being helped or being inspired by your content. I think it's easy to look at it from the outside and think, oh, 100,000 equals I have 100 people who are 100,000 people who are super engaged. You're right. It's not always the case. In our experience, for example, Omar will run member webinars monthly. And even the sales webinars themselves attract the same people who like to come because they are part of the community, even though they might have, heard the same content before. They're actually, attending those webinars again and again. Yes, because there's new content, but also because of that community aspect where they see the same people in the chat, and there's that familiarity. So, I think it's really important that if you're focused on building community, that you're actually focused on the people and not so much the numbers. Because if you start to just focus on the numbers, then okay, you're focused on the numbers. But as soon as you start to be focused on the people, you remember people's names, you remember their businesses, you remember what they do. You can refer to that. You can refer to other people in the community and say, oh, so-and-so, might be able to help you with this. But that takes a really deep level of knowledge and interest in each member to be able to do that. So it probably comes back to, what are you focused on? Are you focused on having a huge number of followers and community members, or are you focused on having very engaged people where, the conversations are, there's connections, there's meaningful connections taking place, and you actually know as many of those people as possible?
Okay. So how does one go about that? Like the whole process of building a deep relationship, a deep relationship with the people?
Well, you have to engage. You have to just be present. You have to spend time. And I know I talked about having a community manager as well. But that person's role, if it's not the founder, if it's a community manager, is actually in there engaging and really listening to what people are saying, or even simple things like if a community member mentions, oh, I've got a webinar next week, a great community manager, and I have to give credit to someone like, Jenny from our team, will remember that person has a webinar and send them a message that day saying good luck. So, there is that care factor, which, you can't really train or teach. It has to come from the person, but you have to be really, following along with what people are doing, be mindful to check in on them, to refer, their work to somebody else. And that takes time, it takes engagement, but it's super rewarding, because again, those connections are much stronger and much deeper.
So my next question is probably a little bit similar, but so for the long term, if you're trying to build, let's say, you're building a personal brand on social media, and you're growing your following, and at the same time you're trying to build a community, how do you nurture those people for the long run?
There's lots of ways. I mean, asking, your community will often give you ideas for what content to generate, what things you can help them with. So constantly asking, what they're interested in, what their struggles are, what content they would like to see, so that you can provide that for them, is a great way to continuously engage them. And then I think you have to be mindful on that journey that, some of your members will evolve. They may need something different to a new member that's joining that community. So it's being, I guess, mindful of that evolution of your community members, and tuning in to what they really need, so that you can nurture them over the long term. They may want more specialized content, and that could lead to a different product, or, different types of consulting offerings. There's different ways that you could provide what it is that your community needs as, their needs change or as their needs evolve. So being mindful of that along the way is a great way to nurture them continuously over a long period of time.
So what advice would you have for someone who wants to start building a community online?
I guess it depends on, your team size, the resources and tools. I think it's never been easier these days. I know I said that we grew out of the Facebook option of running a community, but and built our community on another platform. But I don't think there's anything wrong with starting communities on platforms like that if your resources are limited, or if you just want to start creating content and learning more about your audience to start a group on Facebook or whatever forum suits you. I mean, a lot of people can choose their platform of choice where they're engaging, where they feel their followers would be, or their community members would be, and just start focused on just one of these areas. I think a lot of the time entrepreneurs feel like they have to be everywhere, or people feel like the need to be present on every single platform. But I would start where you think your followers and your audience members are most likely to hang out, and just stay hyper focused, engage there, test out different types of content that they might want, whether it's videos, whether it's audio, whatever it might be, and then expand from there.
So you've been in a business now for a few years now. What advice would you have for someone who wants to build a successful business?
Oh, that's such a broad, there's so many things that come to mind. The one thing that we've learned over time is consistency. If you follow the $100 MBA Show, I think Omar's now, published well over 2,000 episodes. So there's that consistency in showing up. And that might mean that throughout the time, maybe some things don't land, or they don't work as well, but that consistency of showing up and being committed will go a long way. Most people give up far too early. Most people get deflated when something doesn't work, and we've found that delivering our promise over and over consistently is what builds that strong following, that strong community, because they come to rely on you as kind of a rock. Like, I know that I can depend on, for example, this podcast being published every day to give me a lesson. And so that consistency is something that, if you're going to commit, show up and commit.
Okay. And you founded a SaaS company, right?
Yes. WebinarNinja is a SaaS. Yes.
Webinar is a SaaS company. So what, for some people who don't know, what is a SaaS company?
So SaaS stands for software as a service, and it's a subscription based. So it's a webinar platform that's online and that you access monthly, and you have access to it online. So it's a software on a subscription, on a recurring subscription model. That's the business model for a SaaS.
Okay. And what are so you bootstrap, I think when I saw your bio, it was saying that you bootstrap to start the company. So how was the whole process and the journey?
Yeah, so bootstrapped or self-funded. Basically, when we had launched the $100 MBA, and Omar was running webinars to attract more members into the online program. He started to run webinars, and he kind of put something together that was very minimal, just so that he could be running webinars much more easily and be able to put them together very easily. And we're talking back in 2014, so there weren't that many options out there. But when he put something very simple together and he was using it every week to run the webinars for the $100 MBA, some people got very curious and interested into what he was actually using to run the webinar. And actually, on one of those webinars, somebody asked if they could buy what he was using. And it was there that he had the idea that, oh, maybe someone, other people have the same pain point. And so at the time, we were just getting started. The $100 MBA show was very new. We were still trying to get members into the community. It was growing, but quite steadily, but not, explosive growth. And so with the idea of possibly building a software, we really didn't have a lot of funds at the time. And so we decided to pre-sell. What he did was he put together some mock-ups, and of mock-ups being just visuals of what the software would look like and what the tool would actually do. And he put that up on a landing page, and we set a price for it. And we said, we're going to open up X amount of beta spots for founding members, and we just pre-sold those spots. And essentially, we pre-sold for the first, I think it was 48 hours, and then another 24 hours just to get the first 250 spots for the software. And it was with those funds, basically people who said, okay, yes, this sounds interesting. I'll give you my money for it. Can't wait. And, it was with those funds that we then hired a freelancer, and we were able to then start building the software and the first version of WebinarNinja. So it was through pre-selling that's how WebinarNinja started.
Okay. What are some stuff that you're working right now at the moment?
Well, we're very excited. WebinarNinja's evolved. We launched our community this year, and that's going great. We are launching a courses version, so a complimentary part of the app, which will allow people to run live cohorted courses. So, webinars are mostly, a single session, one-to-many, and the single events. But with the courses offering that will be releasing very, very soon, which we're very excited about, people will be able to, sell a course, run it live, and have students, be able to consume that content and come back and watch the replay of that content. So that's got us very, very excited right now.
Okay. And $100 MBA show, what is it all about again?
So the $100 MBA Show podcast, basically daily. It's a daily business podcast, Monday to Friday. Omar records an episode every single day, and he delivers essentially what is a practical, actionable business lesson that someone can take away and implement right away in their business. And we haven't deviated from that promise, and he's been he's committed to that. And every day someone can just. Now, as I said, over 2,000 episodes that people can consume, a whole library of content of, everything from building a business, a team, management. So, topics, there are so many topics there to consume.
Great. Any last words concerning everything we've talked about on building an online community that you want to say to the people?
Oh, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's very rewarding. It does take time, and it takes time to get it right. But I think there's so much power in communities, so it's definitely worth investing in if it is something that you can invest and spend the time, dedicated to.
Great. Where can people find you on social media or the internet if they want to get in contact with you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the $100 MBA show is on any great podcast app, probably the one that you're listening to, this podcast on. We're at WebinarNinja.com if anyone's interested in a webinar platform. My favorite or my platform, social media platform of choice is Instagram. So everyone can find me, Nicole Baldinu, on Instagram.
Great. Thanks, Nicole, for being here on the podcast. It was nice to meet you, and thank you for accepting my invitation for being here. I hope everybody found some value in that episode on building an online community. My name is Richard. I was with Nicole Baldinu, and thank you once again for listening and watching to this episode, to this podcast. Welcome to A Better Lifestyle, and we'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Bye. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Richard. Bye-bye.
Bye.